Jesus was the original feminist.
I don't even own a television. The Da Vinci Code.
1, 2, 3. There are books that are good. There are books that are bad. There's some books so fucking awful you wish you never had read them at all. 'Cause a novel can ruin your life. Hey buddy, I don't even own a television.
Welcome to I Don't Even Own a Television. It's a podcast about bad books. I am J.W. Friedman.
I am Chris Collision.
And we have two special guests this week.
Two.
From the Sunday School Dropouts podcast, Lauren O'Neal and Niko Bakulich.
Hello.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. This is going to be fun.
Thanks for having us.
So for those who are unfamiliar, the Sunday School Dropout show is a show about the Bible. Mm-hmm. And so we figured this would be a good time for us to talk about
well, it's what some people have called the Bible of books. You already know what it is because you hit download on it.
Yeah, I don't know why I always try to make this suspenseful. You're looking at the name right now, and you're seeing...
You could probably see the cover.
One of the most best-selling pieces of trash of all time, Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code.
Woo!
Yeah. So, I hope you guys are ready. We're going to poke holes in commonly accepted myths and tear through the veil of reality.
I feel like commonly accepted might be a little generous.
Yeah.
But we're still going to poke holes in them.
No, seriously. The Little Mermaid is a searing tale of the sacred feminine.
Wait, guys. We can't get too far ahead in this. I think we got to tell people what this book is about because no one's heard of it, right?
Right.
Nope.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
So
it's not like there's a movie version people can consult.
Yeah, well, you don't want to. I tried to watch it earlier. It's like 2.5 hours long.
Who's got that kind of time?
Yeah.
I'd much rather read the book.
Exactly. I was much gladder to invest, I don't know how many hours, probably 5 or 6, in the book that I have fallen asleep while reading more than any other book for this podcast.
I fell asleep while reading it once, too.
Also charitable to call it an investment, don't you think? How is it going to pay off?
This.
Oh, you're really making me rethink a lot of shit
radio gold
right
we're
now.
producing right now.
So, this is one of the most best-selling books ever written.
2004's blockbuster.
84 million fucking copies of this thing have been
Pulped.
passed off to unsuspecting individuals.
That explains why I'm holding in my hand a hardcover that cost a whopping $2 at my local bookstore, and which I had to say, please don't judge me, it's for a project, to the nice lady who sold it to me.
I love the fact that you were preemptively apologizing for it.
I had just been talking about actually good books, and I just wanted to leave on a high note. And I failed to do so.
Since we started doing our podcast, which is about the Bible, I'm like on the train a lot, like reading the Bible and taking notes, which I'm like, oh God, people think I'm that person, you know? And then I didn't realize that I could feel even more awkward, which is when I'm reading the Da Vinci Code on the train and taking notes.
Taking notes, seriously?
In 2016, because I was doing the same thing all week, and I was just like, oh, Christ.
A guy in a fedora and a trench coat sits down next to you and is like, oh, you're a Grail seeker, huh?
I know, I was waiting for it.
You into Sacred Truths? I also bought this at a used bookstore, and I got the illustrated edition. Which
I'm surprised doesn't have that section in the middle with a bunch of full color photos.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the cheapo way to go. This has photos
it's
tastefully
glossy
inserted.
page. Yeah.
And it has areas in the margin where like annotations would go, and I looked at it and I was speaking to the lady at the store, and I was like, this is great, I could take notes in the margins. And she was like,
I guess I'm the only one out of the three of us that read the ebook version of this, which is interesting because this is the first time I think I've read an ebook of something that was this successful and this popular. And the shit that people highlight in this, because you know when you're looking through your reader, it'll have markings and say 631 people highlighted this, and it's all the dumbest shit. But let's get into it. Let's do a plot in 60 seconds. Here's a wonderful theme.
Nobody knows if you're finished or not. You got 60 seconds to give them the plot. Plot in 60 seconds.
Fabulous. All right, so plot in 60 seconds. We, Collision and I, are going to generously give the two of you 60 seconds to try to condense the story of this book
The
down.
honor and the responsibility of representing this massive tome somehow in 60 short seconds.
All right.
I nominate Lauren for this one.
Okay. Lauren, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Begin.
The curator of the Louvre, who is a member of a secret society, gets murdered by a self-flagellating albino monk and uses his own blood to write out a secret code before he dies. His granddaughter, a cryptologist named Sophie, teams up with our hero, Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon, who is the police's main suspect for the murder. They have to figure out the code, which leads them on a treasure hunt, gathering clues around France and England. Turns out they're searching for the Holy Grail, which is not actually a cup, but several crates of documents proving that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene, and they had children. They get help from Grail scholar Sir Lee Teabing, who turns out to be a double agent who wants to reveal the secret of the Grail to the world. At the end, the good guys win, and it turns out that Sophie is a direct descendant of Jesus.
Of course. Awesome.
Couldn't have done it better myself.
Thank you, baby.
It was far more concise than I think I could have done, because I probably would have gotten caught up in just talking about the cool puzzles.
I mean, I do work as an editor, so
Yeah.
like I've actually written jacket copy for books. So
It's too bad that Dan Brown didn't have a way to get in touch with you when this was being
I
written.
I was like, they should have just let me rewrite it. They should have just given me all this information and let me redo it.
Oh, okay. So basically what this book is there's an author named Dan Brown, and he likes to...
Wait.
Yeah, I don't get it.
He likes to write books about things that he says are quote-unquote research intensive. And I read this on Wikipedia, so it's definitely true. So apparently what
research
that
of your own,
means is going to the web, finding every urban legend you can, and then spilling them on the page in the guise of actual information.
But like not even because like I mean this was written it was published in 2003 2004.
Yeah. And it was
So-
written before then.
Yeah. So like Google existed but it sucked.
Yeah.
Like Wikipedia I don't think
Yep,
existed.
but Hotbot was the bomb. So
Dogpile was still doing its thing.
Do you know Alta
He
Vista
just
is
asked
named after?
Jeeves for all the conspiracy theories
Yeah.
that he knew.
I mean, and that's a good point because there is this giant set piece at the end where he goes to the library.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
and there's all this detail given
about the search engine that the library
exactly.
uses.
Like the librarian starts off with like, well, we'll just start off with a standard
Little
Boolean.
Boolean.
And
Oh, yeah. You don't want...
Which, by the
don't
way-
click on the hypertext link.
Yeah.
Here's a list of your search filters.
Oh, yeah.
and it's all presented as like super cutting edge, exactly as cutting edge as the fact that Sophie drives a smart car.
Yeah.
Did you know that she can search the whole database in less than 15 minutes?
Yeah.
It's true. You know what?
Yeah.
I worked in a library shortly after
quit
this book
bragging.
was
Come on.
published, and that is not at all like what library software is like.
I've used links a couple times. I remember trying to get on the web and read my BBSs.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, basically Dan Brown, the author, is just feeding you a load of bullshit about some stuff he read, I guess, at the library. What it seems like is he read the book Holy Blood, Holy Grail, which
Yeah.
I know you have some familiarity
You
with.
mean Magna
Collision.
Carta Holy Grail?
Yeah. You want to...
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know Holy Blood, Holy Grail. What I know is that when I was a young failure instead of an old failure, I somehow started getting the AK Press catalog.
Oh, yeah.
And
What is
at the
AK
time,
Press?
So AK Press is this radical lefty, press.
It's an anarchist, like, zine
Okay.
publishing for the most part. They put
Yeah.
out some Noam Chomsky books,
Right.
stuff like that.
And they distribute a lot of stuff. They've got two big headquarters, one in Scotland, one in Oakland, California.
Nice.
Which was kind of cool at the time. I was not in Oakland at the time. Anyway, they would send you this like 60-page newsprint catalog, and everything was blurbed, and it would be everything from 11 Noam Chomsky books, CLR James books, and then just lots and lots of weird conspiracy shit. Bob Black about anarchism and whatever. And then, somewhere in there, they also distributed Holy Blood, Holy Grail. So I knew about this in like the early mid-90s as an idea that like, oh, Jesus had kids, and what the Grail refers to is his bloodline and his descendants, not like a cup. Everything else, literally, I know about the Holy Grail comes from Monty Python.
Yeah.
Which we probably are not going to talk about, just to spare the listening audience the ghastly
Us,
specter
like, just
of us doing
reciting
Monty
the whole
Python.
thing, yeah.
So yeah, this book cobbles together a conspiracy theory of at least some lineage, if not much repute, and it gloms that on top with the stunning thrill ride of watching a YouTube montage of all the story bits from a Tomb Raider video game.
Yeah.
Right? It's exactly that much fun to read and exactly that engaging and makes exactly that much sense.
To clarify, we're talking about Da Vinci Code now, not Holy Grail.
Yeah.
That's more the theory behind this. And
Right.
Yeah.
I thought we were talking about Tomb Raider.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now
I read the novelization of Tomb Raider, so I'm maybe on the wrong show.
Wait, was it a novelization of the video game, or was it a novelization of the movie based on the video game?
The latter, of course.
Man, that's a 3 removed novelization.
Well, you will be back on the show to talk about that.
I'll just stay here if that's cool.
High points are high and low points are low. High points, low points, get ready to go.
We should try to do some high points, low points, and then we can dig into this more in the second segment. But I guess we should start off with something positive, and I'll go first with a high point. And this is a little meta and maybe a little in depth, but whatever. To me, like, one of my high points for this is that historically, this book was my introduction, I think, to the fact that I enjoy reading trashy literature for fun. I grew up, here we go again.
He's always talking about himself.
Yeah, no, actually, always about my mom right now. But she was way into reading shitty thrillers and, acknowledging that they were shitty and was just like, hey, I'm having a good time with this. Yeah, so she called me at some point, because I guess I would have been in my 20s when this came out, and was like, you have to read this Da Vinci Code book. It's fucking hilarious. And I was like, okay. So I went out and I read it, and I was like, just gonna make some interesting points.
Well,
because I was like 20.
Compelling characters.
Yeah, like maybe there's some truth in this after all. I mean, Y2K came and went and the world didn't end, so,
Follows that.
But I feel like this kind of opened the door for me to become obsessed with reading shitty things for laughs. So that's my high point, I guess, is that this was kind of my introduction to the fact that bad literature could be fun as long as you accept the fact that it's bad and kind of revel in it.
It's like the genesis of this podcast.
Sort of, yeah. So I guess in some ways, Da Vinci Code is responsible for I don't even own a television. Keep sending that Patreon money.
I'll do one. I'll do one.
Awesome.
My high point, years before the invention of the dad bod, before dad culture emerged, we had...
Dad culture is eternal. Please.
And that's the point, is that we had beautiful Bobby Langdon here, Professor Emeritus, genius, but not... Is he a studly man? No.
No.
Is he a sex machine? No.
But he definitely fucks.
He does.
But he'll consider it carefully first.
Yeah.
And he has dadly humor. When he cracks the jokes, they are of a daddish nature.
It happens exactly twice.
And they're both like terrible dad puns.
Yeah. So I'm giving points to a high quality representation of dad culture.
That's true.
I'm not personally a dad, but I'm a supporter. I'm a dad ally.
Can I punctuate that with the description of him? Like
Sure,
the intro description
Yes,
of
please.
who you've called Bobby Langdon.
Beautiful Bobby Langdon.
Although Professor Langdon might not be considered hunk handsome like some of our younger awardees, this 40-something academic has more than his share of scholarly allure. His captivating presence is punctuated by an unusually low baritone speaking voice,
Oh, hey.
which his female students describe as chocolate for the ears. This is about a page away from like the narrator describing Langdon remembering, all the ladies around me think my whitish, streaks of hair are really handsome.
His like graying hair adds to his bookish allure.
Yeah.
I like that in that, and I don't mean to get nitpicky here, but this is just kind of indicative of a lot of things that are hilarious about this book to me, is that in that last thing it said, his female students referred to it as chocolate for the ears.
Yeah.
The implication being, not only is there more than one person who uses this ridiculously awkward phrase, an entire classroom full of people just have all done this simultaneously.
That's one of the blurbs on his like rate my professor thing.
Oh.
Yeah, he has like the chilli pepper.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
4 stars. Chocolate for the ears.
Lauren, have you got a high point that can follow this daddish deliciousness?
Yeah, it was hard to find a high point in here.
Hard to pick from all the amazing stuff in here.
Yeah. I would say I underlined the following sentence because there's nothing wrong with it. And I think it's the only one in the book that I could I read it and I was like, wow, it's fine. And the sentence is, the rough-hewn stone shimmered in the rain and doves cooed in the architecture overhead. It's fine.
It's not bad.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that is the most competently written sentence in this book, which is kind of depressing in a way. But we're gonna talk more in the second segment here about Dan Brown, the author, has an interesting prose style. I think we need to.
He's got an ear for masonry, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. We need to dive into this, I think, on its own.
Yeah. We'll get back to, in Dan Brown's mind, what it sounds like when doves coo. Sorry.
Wow.
All right. So my high point, and this was also a reach. I like Lauren, had a great deal of trouble coming up with something positive to say about this book. So the first of my high points is I actually enjoyed how thoroughly PG-13 this book was.
Oh yeah.
We read a lot of stuff for the podcast that's really cheaply kind of exploitative. There's a lot of gore. There's a lot of sex or whatever thrown in, and this has none of that. And it was refreshing.
Yeah, that's true. Nobody is. There's no sexual menace in this book at all.
Yeah.
Which is kind of rare for the podcast. That's rad. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a scene.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
There is no sexual menace.
Yeah, there's not.
Interesting.
The bad guy kills a nun, but it's
Right.
never implied that he's going to hurt her first or
No.
anything like that. So,
Right.
yeah, surprisingly, for the type of stuff we read.
There's a tiny bit of kink because that Silas, the albino killer, does self-flagellate.
The hulking albino,
the
as he
hulking
is
albino.
referred to.
Yeah.
Is he's Andorran? Question mark. Where is he from?
And his
Yeah, he's-
four people look at him and he talks and they're like, "Oh, you're an American." So apparently he has no Andorran accent whatsoever. Then again, I'm not sure Dan Brown understands that when people talk, they sound different.
No, not at all.
But he does self-flagellate in a scene ripped straight off from Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Oh shit, you're right.
And he's got some other stuff going on there, but aside from that, yeah, there's just no kind of tawdry elements, and it was pleasing.
I think you're forgetting about an incredibly exciting scene.
That's my dramatic reading.
Okay. I will hang on to this then.
Back up.
Wow, we are now officially better at suspense than Dan Brown.
Wow. Then she knew it. This was her dramatic reading.
Cut to the next chapter.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Chapter.
she had just decided that this was her dramatic reading.
Renowned podcaster J.W. Friedman looked at his sheet of notes and decided it was time for a low point.
Low points had been important to podcasting since 1422, when podcasts were invented.
Did you know the word podcast is actually a portmanteau? All right.
An ancient Sumerian word for penis.
It's actually these two words from completely different languages put together in random order, and that's how language works.
Named after the pod racing scene in episode 1.
And the act of fishing. Okay, so I guess my low point is really this book does something that this is a low point, but I also found it really endearing. Dan Brown engages in some high-level hypocrisy about conspiracy theories throughout this book. Because this book is basically selling you a bill of fucking goods that, everything that you've ever seen actually has a secret meaning about the Holy Grail, and we'll get into more detail about some of these ridiculous examples later. But then he also has, the audacity to say things throughout it like, Langdon didn't want to bring up the Holy Grail because he knew as soon as he did, he'd sound like a raving conspiracy theorist. Or conspiracy theories are usually stupid and not full of the truth at all, unlike my conspiracy theory, which is super true and awesome.
This didn't quite make it for me, but I'd be interested to know what you guys thought of it.
I loved it.
Because I was thinking about that a lot, too, because I gravitate towards conspiracy theories in some way, and I think for two reasons. One, they kind of increase your sense of wonder in a way.
Yeah.
Because they're just weird. And then in the other, they're sort of explanatory. They tie together things that have always bothered you or something that's always kind of gotten under your skin. And
Like how Hillary keeps lying about Benghazi.
yes, exactly. And,
They gotta,
That one's true, you guys.
The truth-
Stop making fun of it.
Exactly.
truth
And
needs to come out. Benghazi.
this is a truther podcast. I think everybody knows that. Everybody's known that for a long time.
Google Ron Paul.
But for me, that was the biggest failing in a way of this book, was that the conspiracy theories didn't tie together anything. They didn't solve anything, nor did they make me go, "Whoa, that's neat." I don't know. What did you guys have somewhere on that spectrum?
I actually have a lot of thoughts about this.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
No better place but here.
The worldview of the book is basically that everything is really simple, and there's only one motivation per action, and everything is just a very simple code. So it's when there's a symbol, it's not bringing together lots of different meanings. It's just it means woman.
Yep. This is what this artist actually meant.
And there's one thing.
Yeah.
The Templars' history was a precarious world where fact, lore, and misinformation had become so intertwined that extracting a pristine truth was almost impossible. And I think the thesis of this book is no, we're going to extract a pristine truth. The world is very easy to understand. You just have to go one layer deep and then you're good.
And I mean, reading this, the main character of the book is a symbologist, but is such an obvious author mouthpiece that I was like, oh, well, this must be written by a guy who's a symbologist who has this axe to grind. Nope. Dan Brown is a fucking failed musician and writer with absolutely
he's a successful writer.
Yeah, successful writer, failed musician, which, oh boy. He put out a record called Synth Animals that has songs called Swans in the Mist and Rats, and it's for kids.
Oh my God.
So, maybe if I can find some of that, I'll use it as bumper music. But
I also wrote down this quote: "A career hazard of symbologists was a tendency to extract hidden meaning from situations that had none."
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, that was an amazing self-own.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those moments
You
where you
burnt.
realize this one sentence is representing the entire book, but he doesn't realize it at all.
Absolutely. I had that one super highlighted too. And, that was the other kind of big problem is that just made me want to put the book down and go read somebody who's good at this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, I'd say my problem with it is the worldview. The idea that this stuff can be settled, or that, if you look at it hard enough, you can find the answer for it.
And then everything in the world makes sense.
Yeah, which is not the way the real world works. So if you create this fantasy world where there is an explanation for everything, and if you just look at it hard enough, you can find the secret motivation. I mean, that's a pretty boring fantasy world for me.
It's also schizophrenia.
It
Oh
is?
yeah, no, it's a paranoid worldview. I mean, because
interesting.
the thing that you just read, right? That is an extraordinarily succinct definition of the paranoid mind, and unfortunately, this had all of that, but with none of the satisfaction. You don't actually feel like you understand what's going on, like you do if you're paranoid.
Totally.
So
If you've seen the Jim Carrey movie, The Number 23, imagine if that was about a really boring guy who wrote books, and then you have a peek into Dan Brown's mind and worldview. I feel like this actually means something bigger than what you think.
But
and
way
this is
more boring.
This is even kind of, I guess, a little fiddly of a complaint, but I also just really, to kind of piggyback on what you just said, Niko, I really don't like the way that his theories kind of invalidate the idea of art being art.
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, is it not good enough that these are beautiful paintings? Do they have to have hidden meaning? I don't
Well, it's
understand.
they do have hidden meaning. It's emotions.
Yes, which is hidden to these characters because they robot. But
when you look at a painting, you're supposed to feel things, not be oh, he was trying to say.
Yeah, it's not a math problem.
you
Right,
can't
exactly.
solve a painting.
Yeah. Although I will say, I've probably told this story before. I kind of understand a bit of his impulse because I was in a gallery once and I was looking at a painting and it didn't make much sense. And then I was like, oh, this is the biblical story of Isaiah, but it's not labeled. Right. So once you know that, the painting makes sense in a very different way.
And it's also telling me who assassinated JFK.
Right. It's also telling me that there's two genders. That's the secret message in this book.
Whoa.
There's male and there's female.
Hold up now. The church is going to come after you for that.
Oh, no.
Also in German, there's neuter.
Yeah.
But
Actually,
Ixnay on the Ermin J.
I feel like German is actually the one language that isn't drawn into this whole shitty mess of jumbles and
that's a
puns.
fair point.
I don't know.
Just one more small thing here, since we were just talking about gendered nouns. Did it annoy the shit out of everyone else how he kept insisting on referring to the painting of Mona Lisa as she?
Oh.
That shit drove me crazy. I don't know why. It's such a small thing, but it would be. They go in to look at the painting, and he's like, "She's over there on that wall. She's beautiful, isn't she?"
Right.
And I don't know. That just kind of skees me out.
I can dig that. So we seem to be pretty hip deep in the second round of low points. So
yeah.
I'm going to jump in. This is a book that purports to be really plotty. It thinks at least that it's a thriller. And there's a few big reveals. And the three that I thought of when I was thinking about it go like this. Sophie's grandpa fucks. The church was going to cut off a subgroup, Opus Dei, and Sophie has a brother. Right. There's a couple other big reveals.
Yeah.
But those are three very central ones, and I don't give a shit about one solitary one of them. So just on a book level, like a almost structural level, the big reveals and the big plot points just land like a thud and go nowhere, and it just was a very frustrating. It was like reading this book was like eating oatmeal.
The things that are interesting, the reveals that are interesting, which is that like, oh, Jesus was actually married. Those are like not revealed as like they're just kind of like shoehorned into lectures.
Yeah. And then the chapters will all end on like really boring things like, "You've actually been hearing stories about it all your life," Langdon said. "It's called the Holy Grail." Bum, bum, bum. Yeah, like the CSI Law and Order. Sorry, those are two different shows.
bum, bum.
But yeah, the Law and Order bum bum could happen at the end of every chapter in this book.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those books where all the literary influences seem to be TV. It's not clear he's read any actual books.
The chapter breaks reminded me of Goosebumps.
Yeah.
I know what his literary influences are, and we'll discuss this in the next segment because they're entertaining.
So does anybody want to have a closing low point before we try to end this segment on a posy note with some high points?
I have a good closing low point.
Sure.
So this book is all about, or purports to be all about, the sacred feminine and how we used to have a matriarchy and everything was great until the Catholic Church came along and hated women and covered up all the actual feminist stuff in the Bible. We do a Bible podcast, and let me tell you, the Bible is not fucking feminist.
Yeah. Wait. Slow it down.
Like, the Bible was sexist way before the Catholic Church came along. However, the book itself is also super sexist.
Oh, yeah.
And so my low point is on page 67. This is when Robert Langdon gets his first glimpse of Sophie. Dressed casually in a knee-length cream-colored Irish sweater over black leggings, she was attractive and looked to be about 30. Her thick burgundy hair fell unstyled to her shoulders, framing the warmth of her face. Unlike the waifish cookie-cutter blondes that adorned Harvard dorm room walls, this woman was healthy, with an unembellished beauty and genuineness that radiated a striking personal confidence. There are so many things wrong with this one half of a sentence.
there's
Harvard is a dark place. They're literally hanging people
First
up on
of all-
the walls.
Yeah. Okay. Like,
First of all, he's a professor. Why would he be in the dorm rooms?
Good question.
Second of all,
I can think of two reasons.
yeah, exactly. Second of all, like, there are actual women all around Harvard that he interacts with all the time.
No.
And probably they're not all waifish cookie cutter blondes. Third of all, she's not even, it's like, oh, this woman was different because she had auburn hair. So she wasn't your average skinny blonde girl.
Also, and because this was one of the moments where I paused to read it to my partner, which went over stunningly well. And she pointed out her outfit doesn't actually make sense. Because he's like, "Row, nothing like that thick wool of a fisherman's sweater."
Yeah.
I imagine like a teacher grading papers, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it's a sweater dress, right? It's
it's
knee length.
knee-length.
Over.
a knee-length sweater.
Yeah, and what's hotter than a knee-length sweater in thick wool?
I mean, this shows that she's like a real woman. Like
Yeah.
she's smart.
No,
okay?
she doesn't
Listen,
wear makeup.
bud, you want her to dress like one of these cookie-cutter blondes.
Yeah.
Maybe
We know-
you need
we
to
know
get
what
your
you like.
mind out
Also,
of the
Why
gutter.
don't you just go join the Catholic Church and oppress women?
Funny story. No. Neither funny nor a story. All right, it's going to be a tough sled, but let's try to get a little bit posy here to close out the segment. Jay, have you got
I
any more?
guess I do. I mean, ultimately, this comes down to what is probably actually a bad part of the book again, but it's a bad part that I really enjoyed, in that, like, The whole premise of this book is that our main characters are on a treasure hunt, and they have to solve puzzles. And one of these puzzles, or a couple of them actually, are written in iambic pentameter, which may be an example of possibly the worst attempt at lyricism in a book that I've ever seen.
But don't you know that iambic pentameter has deeply pagan roots?
Yeah, well, it's got fives in it, and you accentuate every other syllable, which is obviously a reference to the male and
gender
the female.
binary.
Yeah.
It's got 5 feet like Baphomet does.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Something about orbs and shit.
Yeah.
No.
Oh man, like the weird Twitter obsession with the word orb, which I assume came off some stupid message board at some point, annoys the piss out of me. But it did make me laugh because the word orb pops up in this book a lot.
I know, it just seemed like there needed to be like wasps right next to it.
Yeah, exactly.
The colossal pillar of wasp eggs and orbs. That actually, I wrote a note down, and I'm just going to get this off my chest now since we're doing low points. As previously mentioned, the book is about solving puzzles. The last puzzle they solve in the book, the ultimate puzzle, it ends up, they have to go to a tomb, and it says something about the orb that is missing will provide you a clue.
Right.
They find the tomb. It is Newton's tomb.
Yeah.
And eventually he figures out, oh, there's no apple on the tomb. It should be an apple. An apple is not a fucking orb. An orb is a sphere.
I also thought that. I was like, when you set an apple down, it stands on its little apple feet.
Exactly.
How many feet does it have?
Probably five.
I guess
Also, to describe an apple as having a seeded womb, let's be honest, that's a stretch.
The apple is an ovary, not a uterus.
And that's
you're
the
not growing smaller apples inside an apple.
We're definitely going, negative when we're supposed to be going positive. But I also have to get this off my chest. This book is a quest that's supposed to solve puzzles. All of the puzzles end with the person who solved the puzzle talking about how clever the fucking puzzle was.
This author is great at figuring out puzzles.
So annoying.
The puzzles. You guys, this may be a little after your time. Did you ever watch Homestar Runner?
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Okay, so do you remember that one Strong Bad email where it starts with him and the cheat, with Strong Bad and the cheat breaking into Homestar's house, and the cheat picks up the wrong part of a newspaper, and then Strong Bad's like, no, just the jumbles, man, the jumbles. And then it ends with it calls it the Jumble Capers, and they sing a song about the Jumble Capers. This was the Jumble Capers, the book. The puzzles are so rudimentary.
Half of them are anagrams.
They're all just jumbles.
Yeah, this hurts my feelings because I am actually a member in good standing of a Facebook fan group of the Jumble, in the newspaper. But you've got a really fair point.
No, that's the thing is jumbles are fun to do in the newspaper, but then and it talks about how Sophie grew up doing jumbles and crossword puzzles. Yet she can't look at this the very first anagram.
Yeah.
You can tell it's a jumble immediately because it says O with an H once and then O without an H, and that's obviously an anagram. If you've ever done any jumbles, you know that.
Yeah.
Come on, step up your jungle game. Jumble game.
I mean, she's a notorious code breaker, and we'll probably talk more about this.
Professional cryptologist, and she can't solve the fucking Jumble Caper.
She doesn't solve any puzzles except based on the fact that she biographically knows something that a man told her. It's wildly annoying.
Doesn't she solve the greatest puzzle of end at the end? Love?
That's true.
They
kind of.
She kisses him. She
It's
makes the
implied
first
that they're going
move.
to do it in a hotel in Paris next month.
First of all, it's in Milan. I can't even believe that we're doing this right now. But
Excuse me. It's
the
Florence.
Brunelleschi.
it's what?
It's Florence.
It is. It's Florence.
Ooh,
It's fucking Florence.
double burn.
Yeah.
It looks like I'm off the hook now.
All right, let's try to end this on a high note.
I got one.
Niko, you got one?
Yeah. So we're talking about puzzles. We're talking about the treasure quest, as I call it, which is the name of this book, The Treasure Quest.
Right. Yeah.
Da Vinci's treasure map.
Dan Brown's The Treasure Quest featuring Da Vinci. It ends, and they don't find the Holy Grail. I think that's an A+ choice.
It's like the Grail was inside you all along.
You know what? I'm gonna say this. This is my 4th time reading this book, which is hilarious. I know. It just gets better every time. They do actually, at the end of the book, find it.
Well, they find it, but they never interact.
They
with
don't
it.
crack it open.
That's true.
They don't get it that
He
sweet
just
Grail
nails
juice.
before it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this was actually the first time I actually realized that that's what happens at the end of the book. Was my 4th time reading it. I'm like, oh shit, he did find the Grail.
But it is a legit Agatha Christie literal last page of the book.
It's in the epilogue.
Yeah.
Technically.
Anyway, I think that's good. I think it's better for the book that he don't crack that Grail open.
Yeah.
All right.
That's true. That's a good point.
I think that's reasonable because, as we all know, you're not going to, on the page, match or beat the greatest Grail reveal, which is melting a Nazi's face.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
I mean, why even bother fighting? Actually, that was the Ark of the Covenant, not the Grail. I just owned myself. Let's go to break.
I still need to deliver one more high point.
Oh, okay,
Oh.
yeah.
And my high point
Could
is...
you possibly have one?
You reminded me of it when you mentioned that Silas, the albino monk, kills a nun. But there's no sexual menace.
Yeah.
I actually really liked the reveal where like you think that she's just like a nice little nun,
Oh,
and
no.
then he starts like tapping the ground, and she's like watching him, and she's like, oh no, I'm gonna have to put the code in motion or whatever. And I was like, oh, she's a secret badass nun.
It's like, I've got to go use my secret switchboard that's hidden behind the bookcase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
and
God.
then she immediately dies. But
Spy
I did
nun.
like the reveal.
Spy Nun would be I would watch that on
Right?
USA Network, right? Characters welcome.
Yeah.
Spy Nun.
Writes furiously.
Yeah.
I have, I guess, just... Do you have another high point? I should do mine last because it's going to be controversial.
Again, it was a reach. Like I said, I fell asleep reading this book more times than any other book. But like, you know,
you look well rested, so
thank you. But the pages kept turning. Like I gave up on the book about halfway through, but I, powered through, and it wasn't as bad a slog as many other books. So I don't know. It's tepid, but like it is a page turner. Like I get why this sold some copies. I do not get why it sold 80 some odd million copies. But
I get why.
I get why too.
Which
Really?
is that you couldn't like Google all the bullshit yet.
Yeah.
oh,
And never underestimate how much people want to feel like they're learning something other people don't know.
And transgressing.
Even if it's totally bullshit.
I think it also offers a very like safe transgression to be
Yeah.
like, oh, this is forbidden knowledge. Did you read this?
Yeah,
Like,
dude.
nobody else knows this. Well,
Yeah.
Everybody else knows this. Everybody has a copy.
And
So, and it's not true.
But when you read it, like
so
there's
it's
all
like the
these-
world's biggest secret society is the people who've read this book.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that would, I think Dan Brown would be really excited to hear you
He
say
would.
that.
And I'm a man who is literally a member of a secret society and helped make up a secret handshake for
you
a
supposed to be able-
non-secret society 3 days ago. So,
I'm not sure that's the kind of
Allow
thing
that
you're
Do
to
you
be
guys do a
announcing.
weird orb sex ritual?
well, that would be telling.
Okay.
But I mean, obviously,
I mean, what else? What
like
does
I
the
am
society do?
I am a grandfather.
That's the main role of grandfathers.
Yeah, sorry, if you haven't read this, the grandfather has weird orb sex in a scene that really, sadly, includes Sophie just kind of being mean about the secret society
Yeah, she
member.
kink shames her grandpa.
Yes.
Well, she
Basically-
kink shames her grandpa and is mean about the body of the woman her grandpa is having sex with.
Okay.
Like she basically
Okay,
says
okay.
she wasn't even hot.
Fucking back it up.
Sorry.
We just sound like crazy people here.
No, you sound like a crazy person, man.
The deal is, our hero Sophie, our sub-hero Sophie,
Oh, hey.
has a flashback.
She's one of our heroes.
where she talks about walking in on her grandfather,
Right.
who it's later revealed is the head of the Priory of Sion, of course,
Right.
having some kind of pagan sex ritual in his basement. And that's what we're talking about when we talk about orb sex and her body shaming the fuck out of the woman that her grandfather's sleeping with.
And kink shaming your own grandpa.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, the big reveal, my grandpa fucks, did not blow my mind much.
Yeah, I know.
And instead of having a conversation with her
She
grandpa,
cut him out of her life.
She cut him
For
out of her
10
life for
years.
10 years.
And then he died. Like, because it starts with his murder. So she had not got back into contact with him.
Grandpa, I've seen your dick. All right.
Well, there's the ringtone for this episode, everybody.
Let's go ahead and take
Seen
a
your dick.
let's go ahead and take a break and come back, and then I want to talk a lot more about Dan Brown because man, I got some stuff on Dan Brown. So stick around. right, welcome back. The Da Vinci Code.
You sound tired.
I know.
It's a thing we read.
You sound beaten.
Cracking the code.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot, man. This book kept me up all night trying to solve mysteries, so I'm a little tired. I want to talk about Dan Brown, the author, for a little bit, because earlier today, I was curious because I thought there were some differences in this book from when I read it the first time. Turns out that's not the case, but so I went onto Google and I was like, looking all around, and I ended up on Dan Brown's Wikipedia page, which led me down this crazy rabbit hole of just reading a bunch of interviews with Dan Brown. And I learned some really interesting things. Like, as I mentioned earlier, before he was a successful writer, he was a failed musician.
I take issue with this.
Okay.
What is it to be a failed musician?
Well, he quit his job to try to sell a CD that flopped.
I mean, I think music is a deep thing. Okay.
I'm sure that Dan Brown's music is just like, he says one word, but he actually means another, and that's all there is to the music.
Well, here's the thing.
I would love to Dan Brown
As
that
a-
record.
Okay. I just don't want to fail shame him. Okay.
Okay. No, that's fair.
I mean, like, he took a risk. That sounds like a positive attribute. I would respect somebody that went all in on their passion like that.
Would you still respect that person if you found out that the album that he recorded was called Angels and Demons and became the basis for his first book of crazy conspiracy theories?
I mean, kind of.
I mean, it would be probably better as an album than as a book.
There's that. He also recorded the kids' album, Synth Animals, as previously mentioned.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
I don't see what your problem is.
That was just code for pet sounds.
Oh, hey.
I mean, also Synth Animals. I mean, a band got there first.
Well, see, you're
a band called Pink Floyd.
You're thinking of Synth Animals as two words, which I can understand. But this is Synth Animals, dude.
Oh, it's Synthanimals.
Yes.
I see.
It's like synthetic, but animals.
Exactly.
As the greatest band of all time once sang, scientists just figured out how to clone sheep. Great. Just what the world needs. More sheep.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dillinger 4.
That is pretty awesome, actually.
It's a great lyric.
I wanted to talk a little bit of the process that Dan Brown goes through to write, because this struck me as amazing in a way I haven't felt since I read about Ian Fleming's gold-plated fucking typewriter that he wrote all the Bond novels on.
Okay, is this a story that will also serve as a pornographic story for a sticky note fetishist?
Possibly?
Okay.
How hard is it going to get me?
Pretty. Just get ready, okay? Because Brown considers writing to be a discipline that requires constant practice, he has developed a routine to maintain his abilities. He wakes up at 4 a.m. when there are no distractions, a practice he began with Digital Fortress, when he had 2 daytime teaching jobs, and when he feels most productive, in order to give symbolic importance to the first order of business each day. He keeps an antique hourglass on his desk so that he can stop briefly every hour to do push-ups, sit-ups, and stretching exercises to keep his blood flowing.
Because Robert Langdon, Dan Brown, definitely fucked.
Oh, it gets better. Brown does his writing in his loft. He has also told fans that he uses inversion therapy to help with writer's block. He uses gravity boots and says, hanging upside down seems to help me solve plot challenges by shifting my entire perspective.
This is something you guys were hinting at, and I didn't put it all together until now. The fundamental problem with this guy is that he's trying to talk about symbols, but he is the most literal-minded person
Yes.
ever.
It reminds me, okay, I've said this before on the show. I'm going to blow up my own spot again. I'm a fucking software engineer. Deal with it, okay? So, like, in my day-to-day life, I interact with a lot of people who we would describe as very, quote-unquote, engineering. And Dan Brown has one of these minds. Like, everything is hyper-literal to him. Everything's a puzzle that needs to be solved. Everything is, A to B with one correct answer.
Yes.
And that's not kind of the type of mind I generally associate with good art or good writing.
Right.
I mean, maybe that's me being kind of closed-minded or whatever, but like to me, those sort of qualities definitely lend themselves more to like concrete problem-solving skills than like spinning up fanciful tales or whatever. And a guy who's just like, what you need to do if you get writer's block, hang upside down. It gets you a new
It
perspective
changes
on
your perspective,
things.
and it's like a pun. It's like,
Yeah.
And that might kind of help
Total dad
explain
move.
some of the ways the plot falls flat. So there's another big reveal that we didn't talk about where it turns out somebody has been a double agent the whole time. Was there ever a less surprising reveal in
No.
fiction? Because there's only 4 characters in the entire book.
And somebody has to be a double agent. They've already made that perfectly clear. Like, your villain has information that only an inside person would know.
Right.
But what you neglect to mention is that before it's revealed that he's the double agent, it's first revealed that the third character is the double agent.
Right.
But then wait, they were working together all along.
But
Yes.
the third guy didn't know. It's just like, but it's all so clockwork that it's sort of like the guy thinks that
It's sort of like the cryptex.
yeah, exactly.
The
But
cryptics.
This is actually a good book.
this is a book written by a guy who thinks that the fun part of the Agatha Christie stories is the way everything hangs together and there's no loose ends or good misdirection. Except Agatha Christie had
Actually
good
did that,
misdirection.
yeah.
I mean, what this book feels to me mostly is like you're listening to Dan Brown tell you some shit he read about the fucking Holy Grail, and then about once every 20 pages or so, he's like, oh shit, oh fuck, I'm writing a book. I better get a plot point in there.
You're actually listening to Robert Langdon lecture Sophie Neveu.
Oh God.
How many chapters start?
Which-
offhanded, off the top of your head, how many chapters start with a completely pointless, usually architectural, historical detail?
All of them?
Like
That the
600,
woman has
800?
no idea about.
Right.
Even though her grandfather was the head guy of this secret society.
Yeah, she grew up around this stuff.
Yeah, and we've mentioned it before too, but she's a fucking cryptologist that works for
And-
the Paris police department.
And she can't solve a jumble.
She loves puzzles.
And so this is another thing where it's like the book is supposed to be about the sacred feminine and how like society is misogynistic now, except for Robert Langdon.
Yeah.
And this like male secret society that guards the secret that women are actually okay. But then like the actual female character in the book is treated like shit. She's so stupid. She can't figure anything out. Like you'd think that when you have a character who's a symbologist and a character who's a cryptologist, that they're each going to have their strengths and they're going to play off of each other.
Nope.
But actually, Robert just does all the work, assisted by Lee T-Bing later on,
AKA Lee Teabag.
and Sophie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude,
But that's exactly my biggest problem with the book is that it thinks it's super woke, right?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I'm so feminist because I'm arguing for the sacred feminine. And what's important about the sacred feminine is exactly 2 things. 1, they can be impregnated and thus give life.
Right,
and
yeah.
2, they can have sex with a man, thus allowing a man to have an orgasm.
Yes.
And in that wordless moment, that thoughtless moment of orgasm, achieve the divine.
Can we talk about this passage? I bookmarked this.
Oh, I was hoping somebody did because I didn't.
So this is how the book thinks of women. Okay, they literally only exist to give men orgasms.
Yeah.
So that men can reach God. It says physical union. Oh wait, here. The ancients believed that the male was spiritually incomplete until he had carnal knowledge of the sacred feminine. Physical union with the female remained the sole means through which man could become spiritually complete and ultimately achieve gnosis, knowledge of the divine. Since the days of Isis, sex rights had been considered man's only bridge from earth to heaven. By communing with woman, Langdon said, man could achieve a climactic instant where his mind went totally blank and he could see God. So like, it does not even seem to occur to Dan Brown that women might also have a connection with God.
I have
what now?
a theory. I have a theory for why, and it's probably because Dan Brown, I imagine, is about as exciting in the sack as he is as a novelist.
And then,
Dan Brown just doesn't know
So-
that women can have orgasms.
Let's also throw in
because in the next paragraph, physiologically speaking, the male climax was accompanied by a split second entirely devoid of thought. The female orgasm, does it exist?
No.
Who knows?
You know what the
I just
female
won't mention
It's
orgasm
a
is?
conspiracy theory, baby.
The female orgasm, filled with thoughts, always judging, always watching. It's worth noting that this long Langdon-splaining thing is literally him talking to his about-to-be girlfriend about why she shouldn't feel bad that she walked in on her grandfather having sex.
Yes.
And who talks like this? Who talks like they ripped it out of the encyclopedia?
Right.
Everyone in this fucking
Everyone in
novel.
this
Well,
book.
everyone talks
Yeah.
exactly the same. Yeah.
I can actually confirm that there are Harvard profs who are easily that tiresome.
Intercourse was the revered union of the two halves of the human spirit, male and female, through which the male could find spiritual wholeness and communion with God.
Nice. Good catch.
Why doesn't the female get to?
Is the next paragraph, is that the part where he's talking about lecturing a college?
That
Because he...
is another. Yes, it is. Yes.
Because in one of the paragraphs, then it says immediately afterwards that the guys made a bunch of lewd comments, and then it said the women smiled and nodded knowingly.
Smiled knowingly.
And it's another one of those situations where I just imagine a room full of 50 people having the exact same reaction at the same time.
Oh,
Like,
Yes, that is there are 2 flashbacks to scenes where he's like teaching a class, and
And they're so hot. Yeah.
and that's one of them. He's
Oh yeah, in the first one he just like makes fun of a college student for mispronouncing a Greek letter.
yes.
Which is excellent teacher behavior.
The Greek letter is phi,
and the kid pronounces it fee.
and it is spelled in the book for no reason with all capital letters.
Yeah.
Remember all caps when you
So-
spell the man's name, yeah.
Like, it looks like it's an acronym, PHI, but it's actually just the Greek letter phi. And so then it's just like, you're reading along and it's like,
What's an acronym for the book? It symbolizes the book, piled high and incomprehensible.
you're just reading, you're reading along and it's like, yes, the ancient Greeks revered the number phi.
Well, there's that, and Jay and I were texting about this. Like, if there's one thing that Dan Brown is super turned on by, it's italicizing words in another language.
Yes!
And it's just irritating to the eye.
Totally.
So, and it happens on like literally every single page. But I want to jump back a second,
Yeah.
and talk a little bit more about the sacred feminine, because if you haven't
We need
had
to.
the dubious pleasure of reading this book,
Of
you
encountering
need.
the sacred feminine.
Well, there's nothing dubious about that pleasure, buddy.
Just like the Catholic Church. You covered it up, man. They covered it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, my encounters with the sacred feminine have definitely been covered up. You were talking about the differing natures of the male response to the divine and the female response to the divine. Let's just read the last 2 paragraphs of this book. With a sudden upwelling of reverence, Robert Langdon fell to his knees. For a moment, he thought he heard a woman's voice. ... The wisdom of the ages ... whispering up from the chasms of the earth.
That's like what women are there to do. They're there to be dead.
Yeah.
They're there to like be lost and dead and sacred
Well, and explained to.
and explained to, and not like actual human beings.
At one point in this book, Sophie says out loud, "I'm so glad you explained that to
Yes!
me," which also happened in Casino Royale, which is another book we've read. And anytime that pops up in fiction now, I feel like it's just such a huge insight into the mind of the writer, where he's like, "I've been waiting for someone to say this to me all my life."
Oh, God.
I was
then-
amazed when I discovered that Dan Brown, the person, was a teacher before he got into writing and music.
I think he was an English teacher at a prep school, and oh boy, I'm very sorry if he ever red-penned your essay and said, actually, this exposition is a little clunky.
Well, what made me really kind of what it jumped out to me about is there's, as we mentioned earlier, there are a couple scenes of this that are flashbacks to him teaching, and to Langdon teaching. Dan Brown's idea of what teaching is so fucking weird, because he's just like kind of delivering a series of mind-blowing facts.
Yeah, they're all like fun facts. They're not like a lecture.
And it's all like, he could see the astonishment in the front row. He knew that this was what he did it for. And it's like, that's not why you should be a teacher.
It's like he thinks being a teacher is it's his teacher career with his rock star fantasies overlaid
Yes.
on it. He was like, the students begged me for an encore.
And like, I would be so uncomfortable reading this if I had been his student, because he clearly like thinks that his female students are like idiots. Like he clearly like
Well, they're really smart because they're all super into
they
it.
are all super into him and all like super sacred.
yeah, they're a conduit for the divine.
So like, if we go back to that scene, the second flashback to a class, where he like tells them about sex, but he quote he's not so bold as to condone premarital sex
bold. That's a fucking
To-
spicy Dorito right
to
there.
college students at Harvard. But he says, I will give you this bit of advice about your sex lives.
Yes, the woke part.
All the men in the audience leaned forward, listening intently. So like, why don't the women?
Because they're
Women don't
already-
have sex, honey? I'm
Because
sorry.
they're sacredly sexual.
Yeah.
The next time you find yourself with a woman, again, it's only addressed to the men.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a
he's
good
like,
point. That's
I'm
a good
going to
point.
give you all
Although it is
a
Harvard,
tip.
honey. I mean, come on.
It's what?
Never
It's
mind.
Harvard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Maybe this was before Radcliffe was
Yeah,
mixed in.
Yeah.
The next time you find yourself with a woman, look in your heart and see if you cannot approach sex as a mystical, spiritual act. Challenge yourself to find that spark of divinity that man can only achieve through union with the sacred feminine. The women smiled knowingly, nodding. The men exchanged dubious giggles and off-color jokes. Langdon sighed. College men were still boys.
Ooh.
That's why all his female students should be having sex with him and his chocolate voice.
Ooh.
This reminds me of something that we've talked about on our podcast, Sunday School Dropouts. You know what I'm talking about.
Check it out, everybody. It's really good.
Sorry.
Twitter at Sunday School Drop.
But it's like one of those chain letter descriptions of like
yes.
of like the atheist professor and then the believing student coming up and like, but that's
Marine
how all
Todd?
of these, that's how all of
Yeah,
these,
Marine Todd.
that's how
what
all
it's
of these
called.
classroom scenes go down. Is like he's blowing minds with every word. He's like, check it out. Bet you didn't know everything in your life was about the sacred feminine.
Oh, damn!
And then the women smile knowingly.
Nobody challenges him though, because that would be honestly too interesting.
There is literally a flashback scene in this book where Dan Brown is teaching at a prison for free because he's such a nice guy and he just wants to quote unquote bring culture into the lives of these convicts, which
Oh
is
my God, it's
pretty fucking presumptuous.
It's so condescending.
Yeah.
And he's literally shocked that one of them read a book.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was getting to. Is he's just dropping his fucking knowledge, and then he says something about an Egyptian god.
Oh,
and,
Egyptian sex
And a guy's
god.
like, "That's the Egyptian god of fertility," and he gets really impressed. He's like, "Oh, damn! This convict
I can't
read
believe a
book."
convict knew something.
But don't worry, because the next line it's revealed. Yeah, it's on the box of the Almond brand condoms. It's on all the box. That's how I knew it, because I'm a convict and I buy condoms, but I don't read. Hey.
Right.
And you know what? I fucking Googled that. It's not a real condom brand.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No, but it's actually the second most successful joke in the book. It's a riff on the Ramses or the Trojan brand.
The thing about the classroom flashbacks is every time they happened, I feel like it was a really poor move because it wastes a lot of narrative movement. We're just instantly just like, hey, I know he's on the run and he hasn't slept in 2 days and he's being pursued by like mysterious forces of like a secret organization.
Not to mention Interpol.
And Interpol. He's being framed for a murder he didn't commit, like 4 murders. But we're going to flash back to like an innocuous time in the past. And it's not going to really reveal any important information about what's going on. It's just going to be like an excuse to give a lecture to the reader.
Yeah.
And he does this more than once.
Phi.
About phi. And every time, which does not play into the plot.
No, not
It
at all.
doesn't help him solve any puzzles or anything
It's
like
just
that.
the golden ratio, which Sophie has never heard of.
And about 20 pages into the book, I actually just said out loud to an empty room, like, the Fibonacci sequence is not interesting.
No.
But it exists. You can't deny that. It's one of the true things that anchors all of the bullshit. It's like you need a certain amount of truth in order to create.
Now, that's the golden ratio
Exactly.
of Dan Brown.
Exactly.
I don't know what book you guys were reading, okay, but the book I read opened up with the very first word was fact, : so
Oh my God. It literally says, like, all the descriptions of historical and artistic details are correct.
the first
No,
word in
they're
the book
not.
is fact. Fact. This is not bullshit. Listen to me, damn it.
Yeah, this book is definitely written by like an explanation fetishist. But it's just exposition dump disguised as a thriller is not my favorite style of thriller or exposition dump.
It's like mansplaining the book. I mean,
During the book,
like, yeah.
like he takes because we talked about this a little bit before.
The
Almost
book is like a mansplanation about mansplaining.
exactly.
Yeah.
But so if it happened in the book, and we've talked about this a little bit off air, it's like Sophie thought about mansplaining, and then it would instantly shift like. Langdon had written. Yeah, exactly. Langdon had written a brief manuscript on mansplaining. Mansplaining's history dated back to blah blah blah, and then that chunk would appear again out of Langdon's mouth. Like everything happens 3 times. You
That's
know?
true.
Everything happens 5 times. 5. Pentagram.
Five
Sacred
equal
feminine.
elements. You know what we haven't talked about at all that I really am a little bit excited to talk about is just the prose experience
Yes.
of Dan Brown.
Oh
Yes.
my God.
This man has an ear for language.
One word. Punchy.
It's warm and punchy.
2 words. Warm. Punchy.
3 words. Warm, punchy, slightly puzzling.
That's 4. I can count.
Quiet.
I'm a cryptologist.
Quiet you.
That means you can't count. Only symbologists can count in this book.
True.
Yeah. finally deciding the age-old dispute between cryptologists and symbologists.
Yeah.
Can you believe, these two warring factions that everybody knows are going at each other all the time?
There's only room in this college for one ologist, man.
One represents the sacred feminine.
And fuck you, biology. When did you last have a hit book? Oh, Jurassic Park, old news.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say what his
the
influences
dinosaurs,
were. Would you be surprised to know Michael Crichton ranks very high on the list?
Oh my god.
I would not. Although I don't know. I haven't revisited a Crichton book
I haven't either in a long time.
They're written like script treatments.
Yeah,
they're
don't-
written like this. They're written just like this. The dialogue is ready to be snipped out and put into a script.
They're probably also like heavily used ghostwriters.
I'm sure, and a very clear template.
Yeah, they probably
Thing.
have a template
Yeah.
and everything.
But does everybody have like a particular clunker sentence at all? Because I know that this book abounds in them. I might like to kick one off because it was right around here. I'm actually going to read two because I'm a jerk.
No, please.
And these are both in the first 40 pages of the book. And
I have several in the first 40
this is
pages.
when I still had some momentum going, and this really kind of kneecapped me. First was this: a haunting phobia of enclosed spaces, elevators, subways, squash courts. It was right around here I began to think I was never going to identify very well with the character.
Also, like this is just after he was described as being like similar to Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Where he's like a dashing professor, whatever. And so then it's like immediately Dan Brown is like, oh yeah, Indiana Jones. What was his thing? He had one phobia. Okay, I'll give my guy a phobia too.
Here's another one. The muted crimson lighting unfortunately conjured memories of Langdon's last experience in non-invasive lighting in the Vatican secret archives.
Okay. I wanted to mention, this is actually the second book of the series.
Right.
The book Angels and Demons came first. And I didn't realize this, but like all
didn't
of
know
this
that either.
is referenced to stuff that happened in the last book,
Yeah.
which is way more exciting than this book. Like,
it?
things happen in it. Like, it's not just like... This book is 450 pages. It takes place in 3 locations. It's inside the Louvre,
In about 2 days.
in a mansion, and then in a private plane.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the
Well,
extent
there's
of the
also
entire book.
Westminster Abbey.
Oh yeah, that's true. Westminster Abbey. They go for a couple jaunts, but by the time you're like 40% through this book, they're still at the fucking Louvre.
There is also
That's true.
never a scene in this book, I believe, with more than 4 people present.
That's probably true. 'Cause it-
Extras are expensive. Though.
Extras are expensive.
think about how many different words you need to think of to use instead of said.
This book actually, like, could have been a lot worse on that front.
I agree.
That's true.
I was
Like,
looking out for that.
Yeah.
I work as an editor, and I've edited like much. I bet an editor is who took out every single instance of like
Probably.
exclaimed
Ejaculated.
or whatever.
This
yeah.
is what we
Ejaculated.
he chortled.
Yeah. He interjected haughtily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my
So
favorite way to interject.
this is one of my favorites right here. This is actually 2 sentences, but you need to hear them both to get the full meaning because they're both filled with spectacularly bad missteps. On his hands and knees, the curator froze, turning his head slowly. What? Only 15 feet away, outside the sealed gate, the mountainous silhouette of his attacker stared through the iron bars. Okay.
Wait, what?
If you're freezing, you're probably not moving, slowly
Slowly
or
or
otherwise.
Yeah.
And silhouettes don't stare. Just, I mean, I know like this
That
is
is one thing you cannot. That is one thing you cannot see with the silhouette. The fucking
the
eyes.
eyeballs. Yeah, so I know this sounds really nitpicky,
No.
but like if this happened once in the book, that would
Right,
be okay.
exactly.
But this is Dan Brown's style.
Yeah.
And that's actually what made this so enjoyable for me. And I know I'm in the minority here, but like I enjoy reading this book. Like I said, this is the 4th time I've read it. Because it's almost like a fucking game to me at this point. It's like every single sentence has one bad word choice. Like find that word. And it's fun.
He used the word tiredly
Tiredly.
more than once.
Well, you have to admit that's a beautiful word.
Tiredly.
And there's no other kind of word or no other kind of description that one could employ to avoid saying.
Right, you could never say like tired. He looked around or whatever.
No,
Like,
he looked around tiredly.
His posture was tired. It's just no. He sat tiredly.
her auburn voice chimed.
Anybody else have any excerpts?
Oh,
Because-
I got one.
All right, cool.
So this is when.
Ooh, I see one of those fucking illustrations you were talking about.
Yeah, it's a
over there.
pentacle, baby.
Book delivers.
Yeah, this is illustrated. It's technically true.
Yeah, they opened Adobe Illustrator and drew 5 lines, and made a star.
$23, please. This is when sweet Bobby L, the beautiful Bobby L, finds the body of the Louvre curator when he gets invited to the crime scene and he goes to find it. Says, the bloody star centered on Saunier's navel gave his corpse a distinctly ghoulish aura. The photo Langdon had seen was chilling enough, but now, witnessing the scene in person, Langdon felt a deepening uneasiness.
It's like,
Yeah, it's a fucking dead body,
Yeah.
dude.
not just a dead body, but one that has, like,
It's been mutilated.
it's mutilated, and then he used his own blood to, like, draw all over himself. So,
Yeah.
like,
And let's just say,
That's ghoulish.
if you
yeah,
draw,
you would feel a little uneasy.
A deepening uneasiness he feels.
And then the police officer is like, "Why are you so surprised? You already saw the photo." It's like,
What? I've never seen a dead body.
Yeah,
I've never
I'm
seen a murder victim before.
I'm a symbologist, except
Unfortunately,
unfortunately,
damn it.
you need to remember that by this point in the Dan Browniverse, it's already been well established that beautiful Bobby L is the type of motherfucker that jumps out of helicopters with no parachute. So let's take a break.
let's take a break.
Welcome back to I Don't Even Own a Television. We're talking about the Da Vinci Code, and now we're going to play some games. The reason I'm laughing is because we just had an aborted take of this that consisted of me doing a accidental Krusty the Clown impression, saying those exact words.
Is it better to talk about it or to keep it? Come on.
You should-
Make up your mind.
You should put it at the end as like an
Yeah,
outtake.
I definitely think so.
Maybe. Anyway,
And if you're going to play a game, there's no better game to start with than the most popular and best
Successful?
reviewed and most successful segment in podcast or entertainment history. A little thing we like to call dramatic readings.
Dramatic readings. We're gonna make it sound important. Dramatic readings. Yeah, I got some words for you.
renowned podcasters. I don't even own a television. And guests. Read from this book. Okay. Lauren, would you like to kick us off?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
So my passage comes from chapter 37. Something we haven't mentioned yet is there's like literally like 100 chapters.
There's like 100
And some of
three-page
them are,
chapters.
like, just like a page long. So
And a
here's
prologue and an epilogue.
But that's how you know you're getting your money's worth. Why would you pay for something with less chapters?
here is the start of chapter 37. The heavily forested park known as the Bois de Boulogne was called many things, but the Parisian cognoscenti knew it as the Garden of Earthly Delights. The epithet, despite sounding flattering, was quite to the contrary. Anyone who had seen the lurid Bosch painting of the same name understood the jab. Semicolon. The painting, like the forest, was dark and twisted, a purgatory for freaks and fetishists.
Are we reading the Slipknot book again?
At night, the forest's winding lanes were lined with hundreds of glistening bodies for hire, earthly delights to satisfy one's deepest unspoken desires, male, female, and everything in between.
What?
Which is, by the way, the only moment in the book where, hey, Dan Brown, what if there was a gay person?
Actually, there's also, well, he also refers to Leonardo da Vinci as flamboyantly flamboyantly homosexual.
So not in touch with the sacred
And he
divine. but-
also, like, there's in one of those classroom flashback scenes, he's like, he decided not to define hermaphrodite and explain how it came from the Greek god Hermes and the Greek goddess Aphrodite. And it's like, that's not. That was in the convict scene.
It was,
when they were
because-
like, "Oh, chicks with dicks," and he's like, "I guess I won't tell them about hermaphrodites today." And it's like, this is not.
That's not what they meant.
This is not. None of this is okay.
Yeah. Dan, Dan, maybe take that chapter out. I don't know.
Anyway, back to my beautiful dramatic reading.
Yeah, sorry about that.
As Langdon gathered his thoughts to tell Sophie about the Priory of Sion, their taxi passed through the wooded entrance to the park and began heading west on the cobblestone crossfair. Langdon was having trouble concentrating as a scattering of the park's nocturnal residents were already emerging from the shadows and flaunting their wares in the glare of the headlights. Ahead, two topless teenage girls shot smoldering gazes into the taxi.
Scandalous.
Beyond them, a well-oiled black man in a G-string. This is the book's one black character, by the way. Yeah. Beyond them, a well-oiled black man in a G-string turned and flexed his buttocks. Beside him, a gorgeous blonde woman lifted her miniskirt to reveal that she was not, in fact, a woman.
Oh my God.
Heaven help me!
Was she like
Langdon
a dog?
turned his gaze back inside the cab and took a deep breath. And then this is where Sophie says the most erotic words of all. Tell me about the Priory of Sion.
Oh, man. So, yeah, the way Dan Brown gets whenever he's writing about anything sexual can maybe only be described as, like, uptight teenager.
Oh, I was going to say super turbo hot?
You remember
I was going to say, like, mega sex man.
Remember at the beginning of the video for Baby Got Back, there was the white guy who puts his hand into his collar and, like, loosens his tie and is like, that's how I imagine Dan Brown whenever he had to write about sex. Like,
And I like that when he...
oh, this isn't okay.
He describes it as a purgatory for freaks and fetishists. And then, like, his freaks and fetishists is, like, a black guy. And, like,
Two women
a trans
without
person.
shirts. Yeah.
Like, how frightening
Teenage
and lurid.
sex workers. I mean, like, I don't know.
I think the thing that got into my head the most was well-oiled.
I was thinking about that too. Is it well oiled in that the coverage is good, or is it like the technique and application was perfect? Right. How would he know?
It achieved just the right amount of shine.
I was like, it's like, hey, we've all been there. I know a well oiled body when I see one.
Yeah. Or was it just like, oh, that's high quality oil?
Look,
right? Yeah.
You go to some of the
That's
other...
cocoa or better, baby.
Yeah.
You go to some of the other neighborhoods in Paris, you might see some sloppy oil jobs. But if you're in the Garden of Earthly Delights, you know the oiling is well.
Yeah.
And maybe even done tiredly.
The garden is earthly and the oiling is well.
Rocking is my business. Niko, do you have a dramatic reading?
I do. This is from when Sweet Bobby Long Dong Langdon is like held up in like a standoff situation with the villain of the piece, the teacher, aka Lee Teabing.
Oh my God! Wait, but wasn't that his friend? Mm-hmm. Oh shit! This book is filled with subterfuge.
So here's how it goes. Robert Langdon stood beneath the lofty cupola of the deserted chapter house and stared into the barrel of Lee Teabing's gun. Robert, are you with me or against me? The royal historian's words echoed in the silence of Langdon's mind. There was no viable response. Langdon knew. Answer yes, and he would be selling out Sophie. Answer no, and Teabing would have no choice but to kill them both. Langdon's years in the classroom had not imbued him with any skills relevant to handling confrontations at gunpoint, but the classroom had taught him something about answering paradoxical questions. When a question has no correct answer, there is only one honest response. The gray area between yes and no. Silence. What? Staring at the cryptics in his hands, Langdon chose simply to walk away. Without ever lifting his eyes, he stepped backward, out into the room's vast empty spaces, neutral ground. He hoped his focus on the cryptex signaled Teabing that collaboration might be an option, and that his silence signaled Sophie he had not abandoned her. All the while, buying time to think.
Like most middle-aged white guys, he's pretty sure that not saying anything's going to get him out of this
I
one.
also like that it just illustrates his worldview so well that it's like there's either yes, no, or silence. Like there's no ambiguity anywhere. It's like you can either answer a question with yes or no, or there's nothing, and you just don't answer it.
You know, it's a funny kind of game. Sometimes the only way to win is not to play.
If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Yes. Man, it's been a long time since we did a Rush digression, that's for sure.
The Rush digression.
Yes.
A Robert Langdon mystery.
Okay, no, that would be for our spin-off podcast, we do own televisions, but we also like shitty books like this one, which is all about explaining Rush lyrics.
There is a book like that, and it's been suggested several times.
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
It's called The Philosophy of Rush.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Anyway.
But that, no doubt, fails to have the rip-roaring, crackerjack, page-turning pace of this book.
Well, I think there are a lot in common, though. There's stuff in common between the two, because my dramatic reading here kind of falls into that category as well, where it's kind of just about getting down to the secret truth behind something that you've always accepted as at face value. You've never really thought about it. So, okay.
Is it like how women are a down arrow on the keyboard and men are an up arrow on
Pretty
the
much,
keyboard?
yeah.
Ladies, you know what I'm talking about.
The women smiled.
Men be
knowingly.
acting like zombies at the mall. Okay, so anyway, like I was saying, something you've always taken at face value. You never really realized the significance in it. You've been looking at it all your life. You never stopped to think about it.
I am prepared for you to pierce the veil of my mundane reality.
Okay, well, despite its corporate image, Disney still had a savvy, playful element among its employees, and their artists still amused themselves by inserting hidden symbolism in Disney products. Langdon would never forget one of his students bringing in a DVD of The Lion King and pausing the film to reveal a freeze frame in which the word sex was clearly visible, spelled out by floating dust particles over Simba's head. Although Langdon suspected this was more of a cartoonist sophomoric prank than any kind of enlightened allusion to pagan human asexuality,
But
he had learned not to underestimate Disney's grasp of symbolism. The Little Mermaid was a spellbinding tapestry of spiritual symbols so specifically goddess-related that they could not be coincidence. When Langdon had first seen The Little Mermaid, he had actually gasped aloud when he noticed that the painting in Ariel's underwater home was none other than the 17th century artist Georges de la Tour's The Penitent Magdalene, a famous homage to the banished Mary Magdalene, fitting decor considering the movie turned out to be a 90-minute collage of blatant symbolic references to the lost sanctity of Isis, Eve, Pisces the fish goddess, and, repeatedly, Mary Magdalene. The Little Mermaid's name, Ariel, possessed powerful ties to the secret feminine and, in the book of Isaiah, was synonymous with the holy city besieged. Of course, the Little Mermaid's flowing red hair was certainly no coincidence either.
Okay, two things. I have flowing red hair. Fuck this book. Two, how am I 10 hours deep into my relationship with this book and only now am I realizing that Dan Brown is a weed dad?
Oh my God,
He
you're right.
was high as fuck watching The Little Mermaid and like
Dude.
gasping aloud.
If you think about it.
Damn.
All he does is get stoned and do sit-ups, okay? He's a fucking weed dad.
But
He's an inspiration.
Lauren, you were talking earlier about how he just has this kind of hyper literal mind and everything has an
Yes.
answer. And the way that he describes The Little Mermaid in that, where he says, the movie turned out to be a 90-minute collage of
Yes.
blatant symbolic
Yes,
references.
It couldn't be a coincidence.
No.
That's just so, to me, kind of like the author, very much I'm just going to peek my head in here and tell you a little something you never thought about.
And also, it's
I solved the Little Mermaid.
Yeah,
Did you know?
and it's not true at all.
In The Rescuers, there's a window that they go by and you can see a topless woman in there. And
That means that it was a reference to
the sacred
Mary
feminine.
Magdalene. And that's proof that Jesus was married to her because this animator wrote sex in a frame of a movie.
My favorite thing, and we kind of ran over it, is he would never forget that somebody had shown him a DVD where it said sex. And he was pretty sure that this was a sophomoric prank and not actually a deep statement about the sacred feminine. No shit, Sherlock.
Okay, here's another question for you. Just taking a step back out of all of this. Can you imagine the circumstances where you would bring in a DVD of The Lion King to your college professor to show him the frame where the word sex is written in the clouds?
What is the
Because-
expression? What is the expression on that student's face when they're just looking at it? They're like, it says sex.
Do you see? Do
It
you
says-
see,
it
Mr.
says
Langdon?
sex.
As
Except
an
that,
incompetent asshole, I can understand that story. We've strayed pretty far from what I think is the most dramatic thing about this book.
All right.
Which, of course, is hardcore fucking.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
oh, man.
Let's get...
Is this podcast only about hardcore fucking? Or
I mean, if I had my druthers, yes.
I don't even own a television because I'm too busy watching hardcore fucking.
In person, not on a television.
The 5-petal rose, Sophie said, pointing suddenly to the spine of one of T-Bing's books. The exact same design inlaid on the rosewood box. T-Bing glanced at Langdon and grinned. She has a good eye. He turned back to Sophie. That is the priory symbol for the Grail, Mary Magdalene. Because her name was forbidden by the church, Mary Magdalene became secretly known by many pseudonyms: the Chalice, the Holy Grail, and the Rose.
The object.
He paused. The rose has ties to the 5-pointed pentacle of Venus and the guiding compass rose. By the way, rose is identical in English, French, German, and many other languages.
Well, German did get dragged into this. I was wrong.
Rose, Langdon added, is also an anagram of Eros, the Greek god of sexual love.
Jumble capers.
It's also an anagram of sore, which is how I'm feeling right now. Oh, shit.
Sophie gave him a surprised look as Teabing plowed on.
Oh.
Don't do that.
The rose has always been the premier symbol of female sexuality. In primitive goddess cults, the 5 petals represented the 5 stations of female life: birth, menstruation, motherhood, menopause, and death.
Those are the ones.
And, in modern times, the flowering rose's ties to womanhood are considered more visual.
Don't say it.
He glanced at Robert. Perhaps the symbologist could explain?
Oh, damn.
Robert hesitated.
He's gonna talk about it.
A moment too long. Oh, heavens, Teabing huffed. You Americans are such prudes. He looked back at Sophie. What Robert is fumbling with is the fact that the blossoming flower resembles the female genitalia, the sublime blossom from which all mankind enters the world. And if you've ever seen any paintings by Georgia O'Keeffe, you'll know exactly what I mean.
Holy shit, dude.
That last bit is prefaced with, like, in modern times.
Yes.
We know
'Cause they didn't
that
look
the
at it
vulva
before.
looks like a flower. No one knew that until modern
Well, that was
times.
That was secret knowledge, honey.
Yeah.
Nobody actually looked at one in the light until we invented
Electricity.
Electricity
high-powered cameras that could withstand the
Well, and high-powered flowers.
symbological.
beams
Yeah.
shooting out
Yeah,
of them.
no, before that, flowers could actually not survive analysis.
Did
Little known fact.
anybody
Until
notice?
post-World War
I think it
II.
was the scientists that couldn't survive the analysis. They would die of embarrassment.
I mean, I think Dan Brown came very close to dying of embarrassment while writing that, which made that very entertaining to read. So,
Classic dad stuff, too.
yeah, totally like, oh gosh, honey, why don't you let your mom explain this to you?
Yeah, there's,
Get me another
there's,
beer.
there's another TV show, Dan Brown's Daughters. I'd watch that.
God.
Dad, I'm having trouble at school. Well, have you ever stopped to think that it's because school is actually an amalgamation of 3 separate concepts, the Hebrew shul as well as... Anyway.
Speaking of things, let's play another little game. This one is a magnificent thing called What Is Your Fave?
What is your fave? What is your fave? When you're presented with a list of options, what is your fave?
All right, so we've talked about this a lot. This is a deeply feminist work. It's devoted to exploring and presenting the sacred feminine.
Yes.
Right? We all agree on this. So, given that, what is your fave woman with a speaking part? Is it 1, Sister Sandrine, plot advancer, nun, and murder victim? 2, Pamela Getham, helpful, semi-sassy librarian and plot advancer? 3, Marie Chauvel, kindly grandmother and plot advancer? Or 4, Sophie, pretty girl who needs literally everything explained to her, and a codebreaker who only breaks codes when she has precise biographical knowledge enabling her to break a code, which is not actually breaking a code, it's just getting an in-joke.
But she's like a real woman because she's not a waifish blonde.
She's healthy looking, one might
Yeah,
say.
she looks healthy.
And she doesn't wear makeup.
Well, it doesn't say that
She doesn't need to.
explicitly. I think
It
it's
does say she doesn't style her hair, though.
Right. There you go. Same thing.
like, I mean, I think it's a classic case of like when men think that women aren't wearing makeup, but they actually are, and they're like, "Oh, you look so much better natural," and it's like, "No, I'm wearing like several powders." And
That shit always confuses me, to be 100% honest. So I just don't talk about makeup.
See, that's what a reasonable person would do. If they didn't know something about a topic, they would just not pretend to know about it.
Better to keep
Not so Robert Langdon.
better to keep one's mouth shut and appear a fool than open one's mouth and confirm it.
Oh shit.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. And yet,
Wisdom.
I note that none of you have stepped up and owned your fave, woman with a speaking part.
I mean, I did like.
Step up to the streets.
I mean, I did mention the badass nun.
Yeah.
That she was like a badass spy nun.
Spy nun.
But she did immediately get murdered.
Well, she's a nun. She's not a warrior.
I think there's some.
Whatever. Silas is a monk.
I think there's some serious hints that she might have also been like an old resistance fighting World War II nun. I could have imported that because I got bored.
I think you're giving this book a life that it didn't actually have.
That came from a better book that you were.
Yeah, you must
You
be
projected
confusing.
a better book.
I must be confusing it with the doodles in the margin I was drawing of spy nun shooting Nazis.
I mean, I think I want to make an argument for the kindly grandmother slash plot explainer at the
Oh,
end.
yeah, because she really does just kind of show up at the end and tie up every single loose thread.
Well, she's part of the Priory of Sion too. So
No, she's not.
she's not.
Well, she
No,
may
she
be,
is.
but
She
she's
is.
not. But she's not like in the upper echelon.
No.
Reading this, I think all of us were just kind of out of steam by that point. That's why Jay never thought they actually discovered the Grail. None of us knows if she's actually in the Sion or not because we're all just like, get to the last page.
It is actually strongly implied that she's going to become the Grand Master.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's mentioned several times throughout the book that there have been female Grand Masters
It's
in the
mentioned
past.
once
Oh,
near
never
the
mind.
end.
Never mind. It's mentioned once near the end.
What I really like about the grandmother slash plot explainer is her explanation of the importance of the Grail. So we've gone through this whole book finding out simultaneously that everyone knows about the Grail. It's everywhere. There was a BBC documentary about it. It's encoded into every single artwork that's ever been produced, including The Little Mermaid.
It's arguably the only important thing in Western society.
Yeah, and like everything is referring back to it.
Yeah.
Do you
If
like
you see
art or
some-
music? Do you think that those were coming from a place of inspiration?
No.
Wrong.
They were
They're about the Grail.
all secret codes about the Grail.
Did you ever see a thing where a person was looking for another thing?
It's about the
Grail story.
Yeah, it's Grail too.
So that's true.
Like
and
hide
at
and
the
seek.
same time, it's an extremely powerful secret. And this bishop who's trying to stop the Grail secret from being revealed says multiple times how it's going to make him the most powerful man in Christendom.
Christendom.
To have the scientific evidence, quote unquote, that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene and had children. Multiple people have died in this book to preserve that secret or in the course of trying to reveal it. The body count by the end is like, I don't know, 10.
It's at
10-ish.
least 6.
6+.
Yeah.
There's a lot of background cops
Yeah.
dying and stuff too during
Right.
car chases.
Oh,
and
you're
whatnot.
right.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So yeah,
So,
we're
you know.
we're up over a dozen.
I mean, we're like around 10.
We're
Yeah.
a solid American mass shooting.
Let's just say nobody's innocent here.
Average American master.
Langdon
Yeah.
is not an angel.
Is he a demon?
He might be. Anyway.
Waka
And-
waka.
One of the people who has died the most prominently is this woman's husband,
Renowned curator.
renowned curator Jacques Saunier.
And great double entendre master, which I think they say explicitly.
Oh yeah, they do say that like 50 times. They're like, "Oh my god, this man knew how to jumble a word." But so this secret that people have died for, including like her beloved estranged husband. Here's how she explains the importance of the Grail. She says the Priory has always maintained that the Grail should never be unveiled because it is the mystery and wonderment that serve our souls, not the Grail itself. The beauty of the Grail lies in her ethereal nature. For some, the Grail is a chalice that will bring them everlasting life. For others, it is the quest for lost documents, secret history. And for most, I suspect, the Holy Grail is simply a grand idea, a glorious, unattainable treasure that somehow, even in today's world of chaos, inspires us. Like, 10 people died for this! 10 people died
wait.
to preserve a sense of wonderment? Like,
And did anybody else picture the grandmother reading this being played by Stevie Nicks?
no,
Maybe.
that would be
That's good.
amazing.
I just realized, though, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
Because the whole book basically is these people who know about the Grail have been hiding it from the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church wants to destroy the proof.
Right.
So if they're actually like, oh yeah, we just wanted this to remain a mystery forever.
Right.
Just fucking stop. Just
other-
go home, hang out with your kids, fucking order a pizza, you're done.
The other major plot point of the whole fucking thing is there's these two separate Merovingian bloodlines.
My favorite part of the Matrix.
Yeah, representing the lineal descendants of Christ.
Yeah, we all
and
know what
Mary
the
Magdalene.
Merovingian bloodlines are.
Right? Come on, dude.
And early in the book, there's only two families that have the names that are known. And so how did this secret get kept secret?
They just changed their name.
They changed their name. So
Yeah.
for half the book, you're expected to believe, oh no, it just sort of petered out and it's all well known. And then in like the last 5 pages, like they changed their names. The plotting in this book is, I'm saying, a little lazy.
So after explaining that the Grail is just a nice mystery that people can think about, and that's why her beloved husband had to die.
Which would make sense for somebody who believed in what symbols actually are.
Well, sort of.
But I think Dan Brown is about to come at it from a different angle.
Then then Langdon says, but if the story will be lost forever if the documents remain hidden. And she says, will it? Look around you. Her story is being told in art, music, and books. More so every day. The pendulum is swinging. We are starting to sense the dangers of our history and of our destructive paths.
What are you talking
We are
This
beginning
is the
to sense the
dawning of the
need
age
to
of
restore the
Aquarius.
sacred feminine. So, if we need to restore the sacred feminine to prevent destruction, then, why don't we reveal a secret?
None of it makes any sense. But I think the important thing to remember is that you didn't need magic shoes after all.
Yeah.
Because the magic was inside you all along.
Oh, that explains so much.
So that's my argument for the grandmother is that she is paradoxical and zen and
She embraces contradiction.
embraces and the death of her husband for no real reason / the most important reason of all. Mystery.
I am going to go with Library Lady because she tip-tap good on that type
Okay.
board.
However, here's my argument against the library lady.
What?
Oh, damn.
Like I said, I worked in a library shortly after this book was published for 3 years. And you are never supposed to give out information about other patrons. Like, the first thing she does is like, oh yeah, Lee, he's always in here reading books about the Grail. That's like library rule number 1. You're not allowed to do that.
She's bad at her job.
She's bad at her job.
She's a librarian whose job it is to provide them with information, and her name is Getham.
Oh, dear.
The English lord who finances the bulk of the operations of the book is named T. Bing.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't even stop
a
to
lot of
think
this is
about that.
operating on like a real Mad Magazine level.
It's the Jumble Capers.
Here's what makes that extra weird is Brown, the author, in real life uses names of real people he knows as his characters' names.
Whoa.
So like everybody in this book
What a
is just the
douche.
name of a person that he knows.
He knows a Lee Teabing?
He
knows a
probably
Lee
knows
Teabag?
he probably knows like a Lee T-Bone or something and changed it slightly.
Actually,
I don't
my
think he-
favorite blues musician.
Actually,
Lee
he's a-
T-Bone.
Lee T-Bone.
He's a huge fan of Fear, and he just couldn't do
Lee
Lee
Ving.
Ving. So he was like, I got to change it up just a tiny bit.
Ever since they got thrown off Saturday Night Live, I've been covering my tracks. All right.
Do you have a fave?
I do,
Lady with a
actually,
speaking
but it's easy. It's Sophie. I like Sophie because I saw the movie version of this when it came out, and I think Audrey Tautou is pretty cool. And so now when I read this book, I'm like reminded of what a great performance and how she's the only redeeming factor of that film.
But didn't you also say
There's also
that?
Tom Hanks' wig, which is out of control.
Yeah, it is.
Didn't you also say that in the movie, like, she figures out even less for herself?
That is very true. Like in the book, at least Dan Brown gives Sophie like 3 points in time where she solves the riddle.
Yeah, I would say
In-
she solves about like 10% of the riddles.
In the movie, the puzzles are exactly the same, and the reasoning to get there is exactly the same. But then, for some reason, it'll just be Langdon figuring out the parts that she did in the book. It's like they took away the tiny shred of like relevance she has to the actual story, and like threw that out the window. Even the part where she like masterminds the whole plan to sneak out of the Louvre. Nope, that was all
Really?
Langdon. Yeah.
Oh my my God.
It didn't test well when she had ideas of her own and initiative, so they just gave it to the white guy instead.
Yep. So
Well,
yeah.
how else are we going to communicate the message of the sacred feminine?
So that's me. That's mine.
Right on. Right on. Yeah, if I had to have one, it would have been, actually, I'm going to go a little off book, but it would have been the Wisdom of the Ages whispering up from the chasms of the earth.
That is a
my-
female speaking character. You're
Exactly. My favorite is the sacred feminine herself.
Yeah.
The down arrow.
Right. Beautiful.
Well, we've been talking for a while. Let's go ahead and take a break, and
Code
we'll come back
broken.
and do some recommendations. Welcome back. We've been talking about the Da Vinci Code, and now we're not going to.
Hurrah!
So in this segment, we're going to recommend things that we enjoyed more. I'm going to go ahead and start it off because I have a very brief and stupid one, and it's something I've already alluded to. It is the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage. It is a piece of crap, but it's an enjoyable piece of crap, and you will have a really good hour and a half watching it. Unlike the movie of this book, which for some reason is 2 hours and 20 minutes long.
Brutal.
Yeah. So, yeah, check it out. It's got Nicolas Cage in a really bad wig, breathing very heavily and shouting about puzzles, solving them out loud. It's good. If you like scenes where a sweaty man mutters words to himself incomprehensibly and then things explode, it's awesome. And I like all those things.
And if you'd like exactly half that, come over to my apartment.
So that's my recommendation. The awesome movie National Treasure starring Nicolas Cage.
My reco is a novel. If you want a novel about secrets, about religion, about some of this secret symbology and like books and shit, but you don't want to read this one because it suck, I would recommend The Name of the Rose by
Ooh, yeah.
Umberto Eco. It's dope. It's got a lot of mysteries, and it's actually pretty well written. Umberto Eco was a cultural commentator, was a writer about politics and language, and also a novelist. I enjoy it a lot. It's maybe not like an all-time super classic, but if you're in the mood for
I
like,
think it's pretty classic.
it's a classic, yeah. But yeah, if you're in the mood for a mystery about religion and about symbols that's got a little more weight to it and much more of a sense of humor,
Yeah.
Name of the Rose is where it's at.
And Foucault's Pendulum. I haven't read Name of the Rose, but Foucault's Pendulum's also super great. Also by Umberto Eco.
Yeah.
Hits almost all the notes you just mentioned.
Name of the Rose is interesting because Echo said later it was like kind of his attempt to write like a Sherlock Holmes or an Agatha Christie kind of story, but it all takes place in the monastery. So it's, heavily laced with religious symbolism and stuff, but it's also very much like a classic kind of parlor room whodunit. It's really good.
I am going to recommend. Well, we talked a lot about like how symbols are being used in the shallowest and most reductive way possible in this book. So I want to recommend an author who uses symbols and religious symbols in particular in a really deep way, which is Flannery O'Connor.
Ooh.
So I actually haven't read any of her novels. I'm sure they're great, but her two most famous short story collections are Good Man is Hard to Find and Everything That Rises Must Converge. And those have like these really big, obvious symbols, but it's never obvious what they mean. And they mean lots of different things at once, and they're really multivalent. So, yeah, Flannery
Cool.
O'Connor.
So wait, you're saying that there's no one right answer to all of...
I know, I don't
don't-
want to blow anybody's mind, but she manages it somehow.
I don't
think
think-
it's by being a good writer.
I'm not sure if I can enjoy art that isn't secretly about a conspiracy.
And you're not sure if you can enjoy art that can't be solved.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
But if you read her stories backwards,
We just start at the back, then go to the front.
All of her stories actually trace out a pentacle.
If you arrange the books in a certain order.
Yeah, and if, gentlemen, might I offer a suggestion for all of you, without being so bold as to condone premarital sex and without being so naive as to think you're all chaste angels, I will give you this recommendation. The next time you find yourself with a woman, look in your heart and see if you cannot approach sex as a mystical, spiritual act. Challenge yourself to find that spark of divinity that man can only achieve through union with the sacred feminine.
Fuck gay people, by the way.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. That's very...
I'm nodding and smiling right now.
I'm gonna do that. I was about to in the inside of my mind. Inside my head, I was like, "Did you really just call us all gentlemen?" And then I realized what you were doing. So
When you did, I leaned forward expectantly.
And now note that everybody is actually exchanging off-color jokes and nervous laughter.
Gentlemen, I'm here to help you with your history report. Okay, so good recommendations, all, especially about the one of treating sex as an extension of the divine. I'll keep that in mind. Lauren.
Also, it's important to keep to treat sex as an extension of the divinals. When I think about
I touched myself, then I'm already on that. Don't worry.
That one is... I don't think you're supposed to do that one. That doesn't connect you with any sacred rituals.
I beg to differ. Sting and I beg to differ.
Oh, jeez. You know that's not true, right? Well, anyway.
Anyway.
Sting never really said that.
How do you know?
Well, he said it
Can't
to
prove
me.
a negative.
All right, so Lauren, Niko, thank you guys so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
If people would like to keep abreast of your goings-on, how would they do so?
Well, I'm on Twitter at Lauren E. O'Neal. O'Neal spelled the way Shaquille spells it. Niko is not on Twitter.
Thanks for asking, though.
I didn't ask, I told.
Yeah, you're doing great.
You can listen to our podcast, which is called Sunday School Dropouts. It's the podcast where an ex-Christian and a non-believing sort of Jew read all the way through the Bible for the first time.
Which one is which? You'll have to listen to find out.
No spoilers. And then you can follow that on Twitter at Sunday School Drop if you want.
We had Jay on for an episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It's a really, really good show. I've been listening since. Can't recommend it enough to the listeners at home, so definitely check it out for sure.
It also, if you listen to all of our episodes, which is like 22 at this point.
Listen to all of our episodes.
If you listen to all of them and then you read the Da Vinci Code, you'll know a bunch of this is bullshit. We've directly covered a bunch of it.
That's a good point.
As for us, we've got a lot of letters.
A, letter B, letter C, letter D, letter E, letter F, letter G, letter. Got a lot of letters.
God, I love that song. And as for the first letter, this is by Hillary, fake last name, and it is called TLDR, I Like Your Podcast.
Is TLDR one of these Bible codes I've heard so much about?
No, it's actually one of those like super sick text message codes that your kids are sending that means something like tongue lick dick recommended, and it's like super pervy sex like the millennials are having.
Oh, those rainbow parties.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
exactly, like on that documentary SVU. Anyway, back to Hillary fake last name's letter. It goes a little something like this. I decided to email you because you have a great podcast and I have some questions and recommendations. I will warn you up front that this mail is overly verbose and may wind up over 6 pages. Also, Jay has expressed interest in what people do while they listen to the podcast.
True.
Okay, actually that's mostly me, but okay, fine. We're both interested. I'm a stop-motion animator.
Whoa.
And listen to you guys recite Bill O'Reilly's sex fantasies while I make entertainment for small children. Sleep well.
That's pretty awesome.
That's so cool. First, compliments. I really appreciate how open you guys are to the idea that people from different backgrounds and experiences can see the world through a different lens. While I'm sucking up, IDEO TV Pod sincerely has the best theme song of all the podcasts I listen to.
All right.
A close second is Sawbones, which uses a song from the Taxpayers.
I love that fucking song.
And I'll have you know that I've hit the back 15 sec multiple times just to hear it 2, 3, or 4 more times.
We came up on a pharmacy with the windows broken out. Anyway, sorry. I like that song too, but thank you.
Transitioning into recommendations for bad books, I'm in the middle of Callahan's Crosstime Saloon right now, and as a woman myself, you have no idea how validated I felt when I heard your disdain that a female character's sole plight was her infertility.
I had managed to forget that part of this book, actually.
Yeah.
For a second, when you were reading that, I thought you meant that she was halfway through reading Callahan's Cross Time Saloon, and I was like, God damn it. People stop reading the shit we tell you not to read.
Do you guys think you'd ever do a Stephen King novel? I've only read a couple of Stephen King's books, and he seemed to be viewed an untouchable fiction god when I went to high school, and I was stunned at simultaneously how good his ideas and how awful his characters were. I only read his horror, but in The Shining, for instance, he comes up with really visceral, nightmare-like scenarios, but his characters are beyond dreadful.
Yeah.
Generally, his characters seem to be too full of contempt for everyone for me to relate to, and it relies on bizarre cliches like magical Negro, magical mentally disabled person, and white guy who is awful, but you're supposed to relate to him, I guess, laughably often. I guess I'd suggest Misery, a book with insane contempt for its fans, or Dreamcatcher, farting aliens and magical mentally disabled person, as books to feature on the podcast.
What was his name? Dubbits in Dreamcatcher?
All I can say is I remember reading Tommyknockers, and that is the worst book I think I've ever finished. 800 pages of coke-fueled nonsense, and the villain in that book is a magical alien flying refrigerator.
I mean, I think I've mentioned this on the show before, and it doesn't excuse anything, but Stephen King is very open about saying that Tommyknockers is a piece of shit that he wrote completely on cocaine and doesn't remember writing.
But so are a bunch of the books we've done on this
That's
podcast
true.
that were way better than Tommyknockers.
The problem with Tommyknockers, and I think the problem with most Stephen King for this podcast, is that Stephen King writes doorstops.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm a bit of an apologist for Mr. King. People who are part of the Facebook group have probably seen he's a frequent topic of discussion. I actually agree with everything in this letter, though. That's exactly kind of the words I've been
really
searching
good
for a
description.
long time. He does have great ideas. He just writes really, really dire characters, and especially anytime that character is supposed to be anything but like a middle-aged white dude from New England, you know? Like his experiments with dialect and stuff like that are some of the most cringeworthy things I've ever read. So I don't know. I mean, it's tough. I definitely think that as an author, you know, he belongs in the pantheon of the type of stuff we talk about for sure. Even though I do enjoy his books, I recognize they're garbage. However, they're all so fucking long, man.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe an early mid, but stay tuned. That he may slither into the list sometime.
Maybe a short story collection. He wrote a lot of those.
He did.
And those move along at a pretty brisk pace. And
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, who knows? He's definitely not on some secret list we have of we're never going to do this or anything like that. So
Nor
if
do
that's
we have such a secret list.
We don't
Wink.
yet. But yeah,
Or do
no,
we?
I mean, it's definitely not something we've been avoiding because we, you know, have out of some sort of like hands off the Stephen King impulse. It's just straight up like he writes very long books.
Yeah.
The ones people recommend to us are usually like 800 pages
The
long.
longest of
Yeah.
them.
Like,
yeah.
you guys should do The Stand. And I'm like, no.
Jumping back. As a genuine recommend, I heard Jay mention his contempt for Tesla being used as a device in fictional narratives. I mean, it's true. That band needs to not be in any more fucking books.
You know what was cool? The Prestige. Because David Bowie.
I sort of feel like he was evoking The Prestige, which is a fucking great book if you guys haven't read it. The book is very obviously evoking Victorian novels of its ilk, and it says a lot about Christopher Nolan in what he decided to change. There's a twist in the book, and it's genuinely creepy in a Victorian horror sort of way. If you've seen the movie, it does not spoil the book.
Holy shit. Okay.
So
I liked the movie a lot. I am a sucker for pre-Batman Nolan. Memento and Following were like two of my favorite movies as like a young 20-something dude, and I like that kind of weird non-linear storytelling. I will definitely check that out. I had no idea it was even based on a novel. So
Yeah. This email is much too long, but I hope you folks got something out of it. If you want to read The Prestige, or you ever need the input/opinions of a girl who works in cartoons, I'd be more than delighted to help. Godspeed, and wish you the best with whatever awful book you folks are reading at present. That was where the first email ended. 3 days later, Hillary fake last name wrote us the following email. ... This is what happens when you write an email trashed on birthday wine. ORZ. Sorry for the insane ramblings. Keep up the good work. I had to look up ORZ. I'm not going to spoil it. I recommend you do too. It's hilarious and funny. And don't worry, we loved the email.
Yeah, no, that was great. There's nothing in there to be embarrassed of. Please write and praise us anytime.
Yeah, and suggest awesome things for us to look at. So that was the first of the emails. Here is a second email I would like to read. This is from Haley, fake last name. And it is entitled, Looking for a Good Messy Love Story with Dystopian Stuff Happening in the Background?
Maybe.
After listening to the episode Super Sad True Love Story, I had to right the wrong. It's not a book, but the movie Synecdoche, New York nails this concept and completely blows SSTLS out of the water. It's not exactly a love story, but love is the main theme, while in the background, the setting of the world gets worse and worse. It's not an easy movie to get through, but it's rewarding on rewatches, and the directing and writing talent of Charlie Kaufman is incredibly powerful. Philip Seymour Hoffman's best performance for sure. I hope you've seen it and that I'm just worried over nothing. But if you haven't, you just must. I don't normally send podcast emails, but one, you run a really great podcast. Thank you. And two, I thought you'd appreciate hearing that the potential of such a concept wasn't lost on someone and was explored properly. This movie has a few years under its belt, so maybe you've seen it, but again, I had to make sure. If you have seen it, do end up seeing it or plan on it, a message back would be super cool. Jay, it sounds like you've seen it.
I have. And yeah, not an easy movie to get through is definitely very true. It's really well done. It's one of those things where it's good. I don't know if I'd call it enjoyable. It's an emotional fucking, I don't know, not a roller coaster because it only goes down, man.
I mean, so I have not seen it. Interested, but obviously not as interested as I am in other things because it's been out for like 10 years and I haven't somehow managed to see it.
It's good.
I am extremely mixed on Kaufman, but I will say at least that I don't know, a couple of the movies he's written have meant a huge amount to me at various times. So I'm interested. I've bumped it up on the list based on this letter. So
it's a Charlie Kaufman movie. It's actually interesting because as you were reading that email, I thought it was going to be Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind that was recommended, and then it was a different Kaufman. And it's making me realize he really works with these themes a lot. Mm-hmm. And it's something that you need to be in the right space to watch it. Like it's not a fun movie by any means, but it's good. It definitely worlds apart from something like Being John Malkovich, though, which is actually like, hey, this is fun, and like whereas like this movie you will spend a lot of time bawling.
Although I will say that Being John Malkovich is possibly my least favorite movie of all time.
Oh, really?
I hated that movie watching experience.
Even the 13.5 floor?
Probably especially. I don't know. Actually, probably especially I hated every second of it. Anyway.
Okay.
So that's what I say about being extremely mixed, because Eternal Sunshine at one time meant like a huge amount to me. I still think it's one of the best acted movies I've ever seen, which is not something you generally, I think, hear about Charlie Kaufman movies.
Or Jim Carrey movies, for
or
that
a Jim
matter.
Carrey movie, for that matter. But that, like I said, at one time meant a huge amount to me. So anyway, thanks for the recommendation, and thanks for the letters, everybody.
Yes. Okay, so now that we've done that, I guess we are about done. But if you want to keep up with our goings-on, we are on Twitter, IDEOTV Pod. We are also on Facebook, IDEOTV Pod. And you can email us, I don't even own a television, at gmail.com.
And we have one very last thing we need to do, which is shout out to our supporters on Patreon. Did you know we have a Patreon?
Oh, we do. Would that be patreon.com/IDEOTV Pod?
Why, yes, Jay, it would be.
That seems like a good place to go and help us keep the doors open.
It does. And for a certain tier of supporters, every month they get to take a little part in the podcast by being name-checked. And this time, in a very, very special way, they get inserted roughly into a book. And it goes a little something like this.
This is even more exciting than haiku.
No, Rich cried out, trying in vain to stand. When the doors burst open, Tim entered like a bull into a ring, his feral eyes scanning, finding his target, Rich, helpless on the floor. Exhaling in relief, Tom holstered his Manhurin sidearm and turned to Zeepaw. Agent Zeepaw, I am relieved you and Mr. Daniel are safe. You should have come in when I asked. The British police entered on Tom's heels, seizing the anguished prisoner and placing him in handcuffs. Zeepaw seemed stunned to see Tom. How did you find us? Tom pointed to Rich. He made the mistake of showing his ID when he entered the Abbey. The guards heard a police broadcast about our search for him. It's in Daniel's pocket! Rich was screaming like a madman. The map to the Holy Grail! As they hoisted Rich and carried him out, he threw back his head and howled. Daniel, tell me where it's hidden. As Rich passed, Daniel looked him in the eye. Only the worthy find the Grail, Rich. You taught me that. The mist had settled low on Kensington Gardens as Patrick limped into a quiet hollow out of sight. Kneeling on the wet grass, he could feel a warm stream of blood flowing from the bullet wound below his ribs. Still, he stared straight ahead. The fog made it look like heaven here. Raising his bloody hands to pray, he watched the raindrops caress his fingers, turning them white again. As the droplets fell harder across his back and shoulders, he could feel his body disappearing, bit by bit, into the mist. I am a ghost. A breeze rustled past him, carrying the damp, earthy scent of new life. With every living cell in his broken body, Patrick prayed. He prayed for forgiveness. He prayed for mercy.
Thank you, everybody.
So now you know what it's like to be in a podcast and in the Da Vinci Code.
Thank you for your support, everybody, especially them folks. And I guess that's about it. So until next time, keep reading crap.
Ride the crab.
You take the clothes off my back, and I let you. You'd steal the food right out my mouth, and I'd watch you eat it. I still don't know why I love you so much. Oh, you curse my name in spite to put me to shame. Have my laundry in the streets, dirty or clean. Give it up for fame, but I still don't know why I love it so much. Yeah. And baby, it's amazing I'm in this space with you. I just can't crack your code. One day you're screaming you love me loud, the next day you're so cold. One day you're here, one day you're there, one day you care. You're so unfair. Sipping from your cup till it runneth over. Holy Grail.